Today, I'm taking you through history's most shocking and scandal-filled moments. Unforgettable insults, threats, and diplomatic disasters unleashed by U.S. presidents on world leaders. From Lyndon Johnson's threatening letter to Turkey, to the shoe thrown at Bush, to Merkel being given the cold shoulder. But the worst of it hit Volodymyr Zelenskyy, kicked out of the White House in the middle of a war. In this video, we'll uncover the behind-the-scenes of power plays, explosive outbursts, and historic blunders. Get ready, because these events will blow your mind. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You won't want to miss these scandals. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Johnson's threat-filled letter that cornered Turkey. 64. The height of the Cold War. Turkey, claiming that Turks in Cyprus were being massacred, prepares to intervene on the island. But just then, U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson steps in. He sends a letter to Turkish Prime Minister İsmet İnönü, and this letter creates a bombshell effect. Johnson explicitly states, "If the Soviets attack you, NATO will not protect you." Yes, you heard that right. The strongest member of NATO is openly threatening its ally, Turkey. Why was this letter so significant? Because Turkey had trusted the US and joined NATO. But Johnson, with a single stroke of his pen, shattered that trust. The Turkish public took to the streets, and anti-American protests erupted. İnönü's response? Firm, but composed. A new world will be built, and Turkey will take its place in it. This incident left a deep scar on Turkey-US relations. Do you think this letter was a bluff, or had Johnson truly written off Turkey? I'm waiting for your thoughts in the comments. Nixon and Kissinger's Old Witch scandal against India, 1971. The war for Bangladesh's independence intensifies. Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi supports Bangladesh, but this drives the U.S. crazy. Why? Because the U.S. is on Pakistan's side. During a secret meeting, Nixon and Secretary of State Henry Kissinger lose their cool. Nixon calls Gandhi an old witch, and Kissinger adds, "She's unserious and pitiful." These words weren't just insults. They signaled that the U.S. had officially declared India an enemy. But it didn't stop there. The U.S. provided arms to Pakistan against India, and even sent warships to the Indian Ocean. Gandhi, however, didn't back down and secured Bangladesh's independence. What was Nixon aiming for with these insults? A show of power or personal animosity? This scandal remains a lasting stain on U.S. Asia policy. The Cyprus operation and the U.S. arms embargo game against Turkey. 1974. Turkey cannot remain silent as Greeks massacre Turks in Cyprus and sends troops to the island. But this move infuriates the U.S. At first, the sanctions seem to be over. Poppy cultivation, but the truth runs much deeper. The U.S. imposes an arms embargo on Turkey and threatens, "If you defy us, you'll pay the price." Turkey, however, doesn't back down and retaliates by closing U.S. bases in the country. Imagine during the Cold War, a critical ally against the Soviets, Turkey, shutting its doors to the U.S. While the embargo strained the Turkish military, it also spurred Turkey to develop its own defense industry. What was the U.S. aiming for with this embargo? To force Turkey to its knees or just to send a warning? This event marked a turning point in the trust crisis between the two nations. Reagan's insult to Gaddafi, the mad dog of the Middle East, 1981. U.S. President Ronald Reagan targets Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. In a speech, Reagan calls Gaddafi the mad dog of the Middle East. Yes, these words sound more like a Hollywood movie than diplomacy. But it didn't stop at insults. Reagan declared Libya a sponsor of terrorism and bombed the country in 1986. Gaddafi's home was even hit, and his daughter was killed. Gaddafi, however, didn't give up and launched retaliatory attacks on Western-backed targets. This insult wasn't just words. It was the first step in the U.S. plan to destroy Libya. Had Reagan not gone this far, would Gaddafi's fate have been different? This question is still debated. Reagan's invasion of Grenada and his snub to Thatcher, 1983. A small island nation in the Caribbean, Grenada. The US claims a communist coup has taken place there and suddenly invades. But this island is a former British colony and part of the Queen's realm. British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher is furious. She lashes out at Reagan. "You didn't even inform us." Reagan coolly responds, "We're protecting a few. Small islands, what's the big deal?" These words drove Thatcher mad. Imagine the Iron Lady, snubbed by her own ally. The invasion was short-lived, but this incident created a deep rift in US-UK relations. Do you think Reagan deliberately ignored Thatcher, or was this just a communication blunder? Bush's fainting scandal in Japan and racist insults toward the Japanese. 1992. US President George H.W. Bush is at a state dinner in Japan. Everything seems fine until he suddenly collapses onto the table. He falls into the Japanese Prime Minister's lap and even vomits. This incident makes global headlines. But the real scandal erupts afterward. The US media mocks Japanese cuisine, saying, "It's because of these disgusting foods," and targets the Japanese with racist remarks. Japan is in shock, as this was a state visit. Did Bush's weak moment reveal a hidden disdain for Japan, or was it just a health crisis? The Japanese have never forgotten these insults. The battle sneakers insult and the US's shameful collapse in Somalia, 1993. Civil war rages in Somalia, and the US sends troops as peacekeepers. But Defense Secretary Les Aspin insults these soldiers, calling them rogues in battle sneakers. Yes, he insults his own troops. Soon, things spiral out of control. US helicopters are shot down in Somalia, soldiers are killed, and their bodies are dragged through the streets. These images shock the US, and the country quickly withdraws from Somalia. Did Aspin's words destroy morale, or was this fiasco a result of poor planning? This incident even inspired Hollywood's Black Hawk Down. Clinton's jab at Putin, democracy or theater? 2000. Vladimir Putin is the new leader in Russia. But US President Bill Clinton doesn't take him seriously. In a statement, he says, "They don't know what democracy is. Are they holding elections or putting on a theater show?" These words infuriate Putin, and cold winds begin to blow in US-Russia relations. Clinton may have underestimated Putin, but Putin never forgot this insult and turned Russia into a superpower. What was Clinton aiming for with these words? To provoke Putin or just to make a joke? This insult was the first spark in the tension between the two nations. Bush's Axis of Evil declaration and North Korea's war-ready response, 2001. The world is in turmoil after 9/11. US President George W. Bush declares Iran, Iraq, and North Korea as the axis of evil in a speech. North Korean leader Kim Jong-il goes ballistic, calling it a declaration of war, and threatening the US North Korea accelerates its nuclear program and begins missile tests. Bush's statement felt more like a cowboy movie than diplomacy. Did these words make the world safer, or did they fuel chaos? Could North Korea still be seeking revenge for this insult? The Iraq invasion and Powell's fake evidence scandal at the UN, 2003. The US is determined to invade Iraq. Secretary of State Colin Powell takes the stage at the UN with a vial, claiming, "Here's proof of Iraq's weapons of mass destruction." The world is shocked, but it's a lie. The invasion begins. Millions die. Cities are destroyed. But those weapons? They're never found. Years later, Powell admits this presentation was the biggest stain on his career. Whose idea was this fake evidence? Bush's or the deep state's? The Iraqi people are still paying the price for this insult and lie. The journalist who threw a shoe at Bush, a symbol of hatred. 2008. George W. Bush is in Baghdad for a press conference years after the Iraq invasion. Everything seems calm, until Iraqi journalist Muntazir al-Zaidi takes the stage. Zaidi hurls both of his shoes at Bush, shouting, "This is a symbol of the Iraqi people's hatred for you." Bush narrowly dodges, but the moment goes viral worldwide. In Arab culture, throwing a shoe is one of the gravest insults. Zaidi captured the emotions of millions of Iraqis in a single act. So how did Bush react? He laughed it off, but this insult highlighted the deep wounds left by the Iraq invasion. Do you think Zaidi was a hero, or just someone who lost control? To his anger? This shoe-throwing moment remains one of history's most unforgettable protests. Obama's microphone blunder, calling Netanyahu a pain in the neck. 2012. Barack Obama is at a summit in France. After a tense meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he has a casual chat with French President Sarkozy. Forgetting that the microphone is still on, Obama says, "Dealing with him is such a pain in the neck." Sarkozy responds, "I'm fed up with him, what about you?" These words leaked to the press, sending shockwaves through U.S.-Israel relations. Netanyahu's reaction? Silent but furious. Obama's slip-up ended up straining ties with a key ally. Was this just a verbal mistake, or did it reveal Obama's true frustration with Netanyahu? This microphone blunder proved how delicate diplomacy really is. Trump's Mexico scandal, rapists and criminals comment. 2016. Donald Trump on the campaign trail takes the stage and drops a bombshell statement about Mexicans. They're bringing drugs, they're rapists, they're criminals. Mexico is sending its worst people here. His words explode like a political nuclear bomb. The Mexican government is outraged, protests erupt, and U.S.-Mexico relations hit rock bottom. Trump doesn't stop there. He doubles down with his infamous promise, and Mexico will pay for the wall. Spoiler, it didn't. Was Trump trying to energize his base, or just putting on a show? This insult fueled tensions between the two countries for years. Do you think Trump was right, or was this just pure provocation? Trump's handshake snub and insult to Germany, 2017. Trump hosts German Chancellor Angela Merkel at the White House. The press is waiting for a classic handshake moment, but Trump completely ignores her. Merkel even asks, "Are we shaking?" But Trump acts as if he didn't hear. To make things worse, in a press conference, Trump lashes out at Germans. "They take a lot from us but give nothing back." Merkel's face says it all, shock and anger. Germany, one of NATO's strongest members, is publicly dismissed. Was this a show of power, or did Trump have a personal grudge against Merkel? This moment sent a chill through U.S.-Germany relations. The Pastor Brunson crisis, Trump's threat letter to Turkey, 2018. The arrest of American pastor Andrew Brunson in Turkey on espionage charges turns into a full-blown crisis between the two NATO allies. Trump takes to Twitter in fury and sends a letter to Turkey. "Release the pastor now, or Turkey will suffer greatly." When Turkey refuses to back down, the U.S. imposes economic sanctions. The Turkish lira crashes. The economy takes a hit, but Turkey doesn't give in, eventually releasing Brunson on its own terms. This became one of the biggest diplomatic standoffs in recent history. Did Trump's threat work, or was it just a political maneuver? This letter fueled anti-American sentiment among the Turkish public. Trump to Iran, religious leader or terrorist? 2020. U.S.-Iran tensions are at an all-time high. Trump takes direct aim at Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, saying, "He's not just a religious man, he's also a terrorist." Iran is enraged. Khamenei fires back, calling the U.S. the devil itself, and threatens retaliation. The same year, Trump orders the assassination of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, sending the Middle East into chaos. Was Trump trying to provoke Iran, or was he simply playing to his base with a tough guy image? This remark became a spark that further ignited conflict between the two nations. Biden calls Saudi prince a killer, then backtracks over oil, 2022. Joe Biden publicly condemns Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman over journalist Jamal Khashoggi's murder, declaring, "We don't do business with killers." But a few months later, oil prices skyrocket, and Biden is forced to fly to Saudi Arabia, fist-bumping the very same prince. This U-turn becomes an international joke. The Saudis remain unfazed. You need us. Biden's initial remark seemed like a moral stand, but in the end, pragmatism won. Did Biden lose credibility with this move, or was it just political theater? This incident exposed how quickly ideals are set aside in diplomacy. Biden calls China's leader a dictator and sparks a crisis, 2023. In a speech, Biden refers to Chinese President Xi Jinping as a dictator. Just one word, but it infuriates China. The Chinese Foreign Ministry summons the U.S. ambassador to protest, calling it an irresponsible provocation. At the same time, tensions are already high over spy balloon incidents and trade wars. Biden's comment adds fuel to the fire. Was this a deliberate strategy, or just an unfiltered remark? China hasn't forgotten these words and is waiting for the right moment to retaliate. Could this be the start of a new Cold War? Zelenskyy kicked out of the White House, a major insult to Ukraine in 2025. March 2025. The war between Ukraine and Russia is at its most critical stage, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is struggling to keep his country afloat. More than ever, Ukraine needs U.S. support to survive. Zelenskyy receives an invitation from the White House and flies to Washington with high hopes. But what awaits him at the door is a complete shock. Biden's team holds a brief meeting with Zelenskyy and then practically shows him the door. Yes, you heard it right. The meeting ends in just a few minutes, and Zelenskyy walks out, visibly furious. Turning to the press, he makes a dramatic statement. "You are abandoning us." His desperate cry echoes worldwide, a plea from a leader in the middle of a war. But what really happened? Why did the U.S. suddenly deliver such a harsh blow to Ukraine? America has sent billions in aid, so why this public humiliation of Zelenskyy? Speculation is running wild. Some say the Biden administration is getting tired of Ukraine. Others believe this was a message to Russia. We are no longer taking sides in this war. Zelensky's devastated expression, caught on camera, became one of the most dramatic moments of the year. Do you think this event marks a turning point for Ukraine? Has the U.S. abandoned Zelenskyy for good? This incident will go down in history as one of the biggest diplomatic scandals of 2025. Yes, friends, the U.S.'s resentment towards leaders and scandals ended here. From Johnson's threats to Trump's appearance to Zelenskyy, history has not forgotten them. What do you think was the most eventful event? Don't forget to write in the comments. Like the video and subscribe. See you in the next video. Take a good look.